I always thought I had a good marriage with Emily. We'd been together for 5 years, and while we weren't perfect, we had a rhythm that felt comfortable. Sure, there were the usual ups and downs, balancing work, her obsession with her book club, and my love for unwinding with video games. But we laughed together, we shared our lives, and I thought that was enough. That was until I stumbled upon a list of names in her planner. It was an ordinary Saturday afternoon. I was cleaning up the living room, shifting things around when I spotted her planner on the coffee table. Emily was out for her usual Saturday brunch with the girls, and I figured I could take a peek. I wanted to see if she had any events coming up that might need my attention. As I flipped through the pages filled with notes, reminders, and her neat handwriting, I noticed something odd. There was a section labeled Meetings, but it seemed nothing like the professional meetings I expected. It had names, lots of them. A couple were familiar, friends from the book club or people I'd met at parties. But then I saw it. One name stood out, underlined 3 times. Jake. My heart raced. Jake was a guy I barely knew, but I had seen him around a few times. Emily had introduced him as a friend she met through her work. But the way she said it always felt loaded, like she was hiding something. I flipped the pages back and forth, but there it was, glaring at me like a neon sign. Underlined 3 times. I couldn't help but feel a sick knot in my stomach. In the days that followed, I became hyper-aware of Emily's behavior. She had been coming home late more often. When I asked about her evenings out, she'd claim she was working late at the office or had dinner with her book club. But the little details didn't add up. She had mentioned a couple of women in her book club who were supposed to be there, but they never seemed to appear when I asked. One night, she came home smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. I casually asked her about it, and she dismissed it as just the restaurant's atmosphere. But something shifted in me, and I found myself becoming a detective in my own life, piecing together little clues that led me further down a dark path. When I found an empty receipt for a restaurant I knew she didn't like, my heart sank deeper. I knew I had to confront her. I waited for the right moment, my heart beating so loudly I thought she might hear it. I decided to wait until she got home from her next brunch. As she walked in that Sunday, joyfully chatting about mimosas and pastries, I could hardly contain myself. I was ready. I confronted her, holding the planner up like a weapon. "Who's Jake?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. She froze for a moment, her smile fading as she processed my words. "Jake? Oh, he's just a colleague," she replied casually, but I could see her eyes darting. "Just a colleague. He's underlined 3 times in your planner. What's going on, Emily?" Her reactions were immediate. The initial shock turned into defensiveness. She started to weave a web of lies, claiming that I was being paranoid and that I was overreacting. She insisted it was nothing, a simple misunderstanding. But I could see through the cracks in her story. Her words felt rehearsed, and I knew something was deeply wrong. What hurt the most was her inability to take me seriously. I went from rage to disbelief, hoping for some shred of honesty, but all I got was more deception. I felt the ground beneath me shifting, and the betrayal was as sharp as glass. I didn't want to believe it, but as she continued to speak, I could feel my heart breaking piece by piece. To put it bluntly, I was devastated. I couldn't believe the woman I loved, the woman I had devoted myself to, was capable of this kind of betrayal. The mix of emotions was suffocating: anger, sadness, confusion. I didn't know what to do next, and that terrified me. I knew I had to make a decision, but first, I needed to know the truth. I had to find out what was really happening before I could confront the reality of my heartache. After the confrontation with Emily, my mind became a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. It felt as if I was living in a fog, where every breath reminded me of the betrayal. I spent days oscillating between disbelief and the painful reality that my life was about to change dramatically. My heart was heavy with the weight of uncertainty, but I knew one thing: I needed proof. I needed to see the truth for myself. I started to track Emily's movements, nothing too invasive, just a quiet observation. I was careful not to let her notice. I didn't want her to catch on to the fact that I was investigating her. I'd leave work a little earlier than usual and position myself at a nearby cafe, where I could see the entrance of the restaurant where she sometimes had dinner with friends. My heart would race every time I heard laughter or saw a couple walk by, hoping for a glimpse of her. The waiting was agonizing. One evening, after a week of sporadic spying, I finally caught a break. Emily was supposed to be at a book club meeting, but I decided to drive by the restaurant instead. I pulled into the parking lot, feeling a mix of dread and determination. As I scanned the room, I finally spotted her. She was sitting at a corner table, laughing and leaning in close to none other than Jake. My stomach dropped. There they were, seemingly caught up in their own world. She tossed her head back with that infectious laugh I had fallen in love with, and for a moment it felt like a dagger straight through my heart. I was a ghost unseen, and yet I felt every bit of pain as if I were right there with them. I fought the urge to storm inside and confront them. Instead, I took out my phone and snapped a couple of pictures, my hands shaking as I did. With each click of the shutter, I felt a piece of my soul break off. I had to do this, I had to gather all the evidence. After about an hour, one that felt like a lifetime, Emily finally stood up, leaning in to give Jake a quick kiss on the cheek. She took her time walking out, and with every step I could feel the anger building inside me. I was no longer the confused husband. I was a man betrayed. That night I sat in our living room, the pictures spread out before me like a crime scene. The reality was undeniable. I couldn't believe I had let it go on for this long, trusting her when she clearly had no intention of being faithful. Every sweet moment we had, every "I love you," felt tainted now. I stewed in my anger, replaying the earlier confrontation in my mind. How could she lie to my face with such ease, pretending everything was fine while she was out with another man? As I formulated a plan for the confrontation, I went through a roller coaster of emotions. I was furious, sad, and utterly betrayed. I couldn't let her think she could get away with this. The idea of revenge crept into my mind. Should I expose her? Should I confront her with all the evidence and watch her squirm? The thought of making her feel the pain she had inflicted on me was tempting. But in that moment of darkness, I also found clarity. I didn't want to be the man who acted out of rage. I wanted to confront her with honesty, not just for me, but for the life we had built together. I decided that I would save the photographs for the right moment. I would let her enjoy her little charade for a while longer, so I could catch her off guard. The next morning I acted as if nothing had changed. I greeted her with a smile, trying to hide the storm brewing inside me. It felt surreal putting on a facade while knowing the truth. Emily was chipper as usual, going on about an upcoming book release. I listened but couldn't shake the image of her with Jake from my mind. I found myself nodding along, feeling hollow. As the days passed, I noticed more slip-ups. Emily would get texts late at night, always quick to silence her phone. I'd catch her staring off into space, a distant look in her eyes as if she were somewhere else entirely. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand to know where her heart truly lay, but I held back. I reminded myself that the truth would come out, and when it did, I would be ready. That weekend, I decided to use a different approach. I invited Emily to go for a hike, a spot we loved visiting together. Being outdoors always brought us closer, and I thought it might help to clear my mind before the inevitable confrontation. As we walked, I felt the tension in the air. I could see the glances she threw my way, trying to gauge my mood. I couldn't let her know what was coming. Halfway up the trail, I stopped to take in the view. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over everything, but I felt none of its warmth. I turned to her, searching for the courage to speak. "Emily, have you ever felt like you're hiding something?" I asked, watching her expression shift from surprise to something resembling guilt. "Of course not," she replied defensively, but I could see a flicker of something behind her eyes. I had just nudged the question that would unravel everything, and I knew it was time to push further. The hike would lead to the confrontation I had been preparing for, and I felt ready, even if the outcome terrified me. As we stood there on the trail, I felt a swell of emotions crashing over me like the waves of the ocean. The picturesque scenery around us only amplified my internal turmoil. I had spent enough time analyzing Emily's behavior, and now I needed to confront her head-on. I could no longer keep the truth at bay. It was time to rip the Band-Aid off and confront the festering wound that was our relationship. "Emily," I began, my voice steady but low, I need to know what's really going on with you and Jake. I saw you two together last week." The words hung in the air, taut and heavy like a line drawn in the sand, waiting for one of us to cross it. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she might crumble under the weight of the truth. But then her expression hardened. "You're being ridiculous." "I told you he's just a colleague," she shot back, her tone defensive, almost angry. I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with indignation. "Ridiculous," I echoed, trying to keep my frustration in check. "You think it's ridiculous that I'm worried about my wife being close to another man? I saw you with him, Emily. You were practically all over him." The words felt like daggers aimed straight at her heart, if she had one left to protect. I was standing on the precipice of a confrontation that could shatter our lives, and yet I felt an odd sense of clarity. I wasn't angry, I was hurt, and I needed her to understand that this wasn't just about Jake. It was about trust, and the foundation of our marriage was crumbling beneath our feet. "Okay, fine, I've been spending time with him, but it's not what you think," she admitted, her voice finally cracking. "He's just been helping me with work. There are things you don't understand." "Things I don't understand," I scoffed, my blood boiling. "Like what?" "That you're cheating on me, because that's the only thing I see here." Her face twisted into a mask of anger, but I could still detect an undercurrent of fear. I pressed on, feeling that I was losing control but unable to stop. "You can't just brush it off, Emily. This isn't a little misunderstanding. You lied to me, and I deserve to know the truth." She opened her mouth to protest but stopped abruptly, as if she were weighing her words. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, and for the first time, it felt like she was actually considering the gravity of her actions. But then she quickly regained her composure. "Oh, come on, you're being dramatic. We haven't done anything wrong," she retorted, crossing her arms defiantly. "You're just being paranoid because of your own insecurities. I'm not cheating on you." The denial stung, and I felt like I was being pulled into a spiral of gaslighting. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure as I leaned in closer. "You expect me to believe that after everything? The late nights, the odd text messages. I've been watching me like some sort of stalker," she shot back, her voice dripping with venom. "That's not love, that's obsession. Is it obsession to want to know where my wife is spending her time? Is it obsession to care about our marriage?" The frustration boiling within me was almost unbearable, and I took a moment to collect myself. "Let me ask you this. Why was Jake underlined in your planner, huh? If he's just a colleague, why the emphasis? Do you think I'm stupid?" With that, I pulled out my phone and held up the photos I had taken. I watched her face as realization washed over her. The color drained from her cheeks, replaced by a look of horror. You were spying on me," she stammered, the bravado fading quickly. "Spying? No, I'd call it gathering evidence. You've given me every reason to suspect you, Emily, and now here's your chance to come clean." I took a step back, watching her carefully. "What's it going to be?" Silence stretched between us, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. The facade of confidence was cracking, and for the first time it felt like I had the upper hand, but I also sensed her panic deepening. I was just confused," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's complicated." "Complicated? You're either with me or you're not. This isn't some game. You need to choose." My voice was firm, and I was surprised at how steady I sounded. Inside, I felt like I was shaking, but I refused to show it. "I want to be with you," she said, her voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you, I don't know what happened. The attention from Jake was flattering, I guess, but it never went past flirting." "Flirting? Is that supposed to make it better? You think I want to hear that? Flirting isn't a nothing thing, it's a betrayal of trust." I could feel my resolve hardening. "You have to understand, this is about your actions, not my insecurities." She took a breath, and I could see tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm sorry, I never wanted to hurt you. I just got caught up in it all. I promise it didn't mean anything." The tears started to flow, and a sense of sympathy washed over me, but I quickly pushed it aside. I didn't want to give in too easily. "What if I had done this to you? How would you feel?" Her face contorted with guilt, but she didn't answer. I could see the weight of her choices pressing down on her, and it felt like a turning point. I realized that confronting her wasn't just about seeking revenge. It was about reclaiming my own dignity and deciding whether this relationship was worth saving. As the sun sank lower in the sky, casting shadows around us, I knew I had to lay down the ground rules. Our relationship had changed irrevocably, and I was prepared to stand firm in my decision about what came next. It was time for Emily to face the consequences of her actions, and for me to consider whether our marriage could withstand the aftermath of her betrayal. As we stood there on the trail, the sun setting behind us, I felt a strange mix of anger and pity for Emily. I could see she was genuinely upset, but I couldn't allow myself to feel sorry for her just yet. The betrayal weighed heavily on my heart, and every fiber of my being screamed that I needed to take control of the situation. I refused to let her off the hook so easily. "Emily," I said, my voice steady but firm, "this isn't something we can just gloss over. I need you to be honest with me. If we're going to salvage our marriage, you need to tell me everything." I watched as she wiped her tears, her face a mask of confusion and regret. I wasn't sure if she understood the gravity of the situation, but I hoped my resolve would show her how serious I was. I needed her to realize that this was no longer a game, the stakes were far too high. "I know I messed up," she said, her voice trembling. "I just got caught up in the excitement of someone new. It was nice to feel desired again, but I didn't want to hurt you, I swear." "Desire, is that what you call it?" I couldn't help but scoff at her words. "This isn't about desire, Emily. This is about betrayal. You crossed a line that you can't just erase with a few tears and empty promises." She looked down, ashamed, and I could sense the internal struggle she was facing. But deep down, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in limbo, hoping she would change. I needed to know if she was willing to fight for our marriage or if she would rather continue down this path of deception. "Are you willing to cut ties with Jake?" I asked, my voice low but steady. "Can you promise me that you'll do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust?" She hesitated, her eyes darting to the ground as she thought about her answer. "I can't just cut him out of my life completely. We work together and we have mutual friends," she said, her tone turning defensive again. "But I can promise that I won't see him outside of work anymore. I want to fix this, I truly do." "Fix this?" I echoed, feeling a surge of frustration. "You think it's that simple? You've shattered my trust and now you expect me to just believe you. It's not that easy." "I know it's not easy," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. I just want a chance to prove that I can change. I want to be with you." "Do you?" I challenged, stepping closer. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you enjoyed the attention from Jake far too much. You crossed that line, and now you want to pretend it didn't happen." Her face fell, and I could see the walls coming down as the weight of her choices crashed upon her. "I never meant to hurt you, I promise," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'll do what it takes, just please don't leave me." The desperation in her voice tugged at my heartstrings, but I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. "What you need to understand, Emily, is that trust is built over time. You can't expect me to forgive you overnight. This is going to take work, real work. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. You have to believe me," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks like a river of remorse. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "It's not just about your willingness to change. I need to see it in your actions. You'll have to earn my trust back, and that's going to take time. I need to know that you're committed to this relationship, not just out of guilt, but because you want to be with me." "I am committed. I love you," she insisted, her eyes searching mine for some glimmer of hope. "I never wanted this to happen. I don't want to lose you." I considered her words, but doubt still lingered in my mind. I wanted to believe her, but every instinct screamed at me that trust once broken was not easily repaired. "Okay, then here's what we're going to do," I said, taking control of the situation. "We're going to go to couples therapy. I think it's the best way for us to address the issues in our marriage and to discuss how we move forward from here." Emily's expression shifted, a mix of relief and apprehension. "Therapy? You really think that will help?" "Yes," I replied firmly. "We need an impartial third party to help us navigate this. I think it could be beneficial for both of us to have a space where we can be honest and open without the fear of judgment." She nodded slowly, seeming to process what I had just said. "Okay, I'll do it. I'm willing to try anything to make this work," she said, her voice soft but resolute. With a plan in motion, I felt a small sense of relief wash over me. It didn't erase the hurt she had caused, but it gave me a framework to work within. It was a start, and maybe that was enough. As we walked back down the trail, I felt the weight of the world slowly lifting from my shoulders. I knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but it was a road I was willing to navigate, provided we both put in the effort to heal. At that moment, I resolved to be open yet cautious. I would approach this journey with hope, but tempered with the reality of our situation. I needed to protect my heart while allowing Emily the chance to prove herself. As we reached the car, I took one last look at the sunset, a symbol of the ending of one chapter and the beginning of another. It felt like a turning point, and as much as I wanted to hold onto my anger, I also felt the flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps we could find our way back to each other if both of us were truly willing to fight for it. As the days turned into weeks, Emily and I embarked on a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty, but also an underlying hope that perhaps we could emerge stronger than before. We scheduled our first couples therapy session, the thought of which filled me with both dread and anticipation. Would it expose the cracks in our marriage or provide the tools we needed to rebuild? Only time would tell. The day of our first session arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, our bodies tense as we waited for the therapist to arrive. I kept my gaze fixed on the door, dreading the moment we would have to face the issues in our relationship head-on. Emily fiddled with her hands, glancing around nervously. When the therapist finally walked in, her warm smile and calming demeanor helped ease some of the tension. She introduced herself as Dr. Lisa, and as we began to talk, I tried to focus on her words, but my mind was racing. I wanted to hear Emily's truth, the real reasons behind her infidelity, but I also feared what it might reveal about our marriage. Let's start by discussing why you both felt it was necessary to come here today, Dr. Lisa said, her voice calm and inviting. What are your main concerns regarding your relationship? I glanced at Emily, who looked down at her lap. I think we both know why we're here, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Emily was unfaithful. She spent time with another man, Jake, and lied about it. Dr. Lisa nodded, her expression thoughtful. Emily, how do you respond to that? I didn't mean for it to happen, she started, her voice shaky. It was a series of poor choices, and I let myself get caught up in the attention and flattery. I never wanted to hurt him, but I did, and now I feel lost. Lost? Dr. Lisa echoed, leaning forward. Can you elaborate on that feeling? Emily took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with tears. I thought I was happy, but there was this emptiness inside me. I didn't realize how much I craved validation until someone else was giving it to me. I made excuses for my behavior, convincing myself it was harmless. But I see now that I was lying to myself and to my husband. The atmosphere in the room shifted as Emily opened up. I felt both heartbroken and relieved. Her words were raw and honest, and for the first time I could see the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. That glimpse of vulnerability allowed me to soften just a fraction. Dr. Lisa gently probed further. And how did you feel hearing Emily's admission? I took a moment to collect my thoughts. It hurt, a lot. I trusted her and she betrayed that trust. I can't help but feel angry and confused. I thought we had something real, but now I'm questioning everything. It's natural to feel that way, Dr. Lisa responded. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and when it's broken, it takes time to heal. What do you both think it will take to start rebuilding that trust? I want to see her commitment to change, I said, glancing at Emily. I need to know that she understands the gravity of her actions and is willing to put in the work to regain my trust. I am willing, Emily said quickly, her sincerity shining through. I want to prove it to you. I know it won't happen overnight, but I'll do anything to show you I'm committed. Dr. Lisa nodded, guiding the conversation towards setting boundaries. Establishing clear boundaries is essential for rebuilding trust. What do you think those should be for each of you moving forward? I think Emily needs to cut all ties with Jake, I said, feeling a surge of resolve. No contact, that's non-negotiable for me. If she wants to prove her commitment, that has to be a priority. Emily nodded, her expression somber. I agree. I'll do that. I need to focus on us. Good, Dr. Lisa said, jotting down notes. What else? Are there other boundaries you like to establish? I thought for a moment before responding. I think we need to be more open and honest with each other. That means sharing our feelings without fear of judgment. I want to create a safe space for us to communicate. Absolutely, Dr. Lisa agreed. Establishing a culture of honesty is crucial. It will take time, but commitment from both of you can lead to healing. As the session progressed, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Emily was being open about her feelings, and I could sense her genuine desire to change. At the same time, I was still guarded, mindful of the fact that words alone wouldn't be enough. I needed to see real actions to match her promises. After an hour, we wrapped up our session with Dr. Lisa. She provided us with homework to facilitate open communication and suggested we check in with each other daily about our feelings. As we made our way to the car, the tension that had been suffocating us for weeks felt slightly lifted. I think that went well, Emily said, her voice a mixture of hope and uncertainty. I really want to make this work, you know. I want that too, I replied, starting the engine. But it's going to be a long road ahead. We'll need to remain committed to the process. I'm committed, she insisted, glancing back at me. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you. As we drove home, I felt the weight of our struggles still pressing on my heart, but I also sensed a spark of possibility. It would be a difficult journey, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could navigate through this together and emerge stronger than before. That night we sat together in silence, each lost in our thoughts. I reflected on the therapy session and the steps we needed to take moving forward. It felt surreal, like I was living in a different reality where trust was a fragile thing and love had to be actively nurtured. I knew I had to protect myself while remaining open to the possibility of healing. Our relationship would require effort from both of us, an intricate dance of vulnerability, patience, and commitment. And as much as I wanted to believe that we could find our way back to each other, I also understood the significance of this moment. It was a wake-up call, a chance to reevaluate what we both wanted and needed from our marriage. As I laid down that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The journey ahead was daunting, but I was determined to face it head-on. I knew I needed to keep my heart guarded while allowing hope to thrive, a delicate balance that would shape our future together. The following weeks passed in a blur of therapy sessions, open conversations, and a renewed commitment to our marriage. Each day was a blend of hope and trepidation, as I found myself navigating the complexities of trust and vulnerability. We were both trying hard to redefine our relationship, to scrap the old patterns that had led us here and build something new in their place. Emily took the breakup with Jake seriously, blocking his number and distancing herself from any mutual friends who might bring him up. I watched her with a cautious heart, still wary of the pain she had caused. But day by day, she showed signs of genuine remorse and a desire to change. It was a difficult process for both of us, but the small victories felt worthwhile. During our therapy sessions with Dr. Lisa, we began to identify underlying issues that had contributed to Emily's infidelity. We talked about how each of us had neglected our emotional needs and the importance of finding new ways to connect. As we dug deeper, I started to understand the complexities of Emily's feelings, the emptiness she had felt before seeking validation elsewhere. There were moments when the weight of her betrayal would rear its ugly head, leaving me feeling raw and exposed. I would catch flashes of jealousy when she discussed work, or I would feel the fire of anger bubbling up when I remembered her laughter shared with Jake. But I was learning how to communicate those feelings instead of letting them fester. Emily responded by acknowledging my pain, and slowly the barriers between us began to dissolve. One evening, as we sat on the couch together after a long day, I turned to her. "Do you remember when we first started dating?" I asked, allowing nostalgia to wash over me. "Of course," she replied, a smile breaking through her seriousness. "We were so carefree and full of dreams." "We had that spark," I said, my heart aching with both longing and fear. "I want to feel that way again. Can we get back to that point? Can we find our way back to the love we had?" "I want that too," she said, her eyes shining with sincerity. "I never want to take what we have for granted again. I want to fight for us, for our love." That night, we made a pact to keep the lines of communication open, to be honest about our feelings, and to prioritize each other's emotional needs. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. We were both determined to reclaim our love and create a new bond built on honesty and commitment. As the weeks turned into months, I began to notice changes in both Emily and myself. I was learning to forgive, not just her but also myself for allowing the situation to escalate. The journey was not linear. There were days filled with laughter and warmth, as well as moments when old insecurities flared up. However, through every challenge, we leaned on each other, using our therapy sessions as a guide to navigate the difficult terrain. One significant turning point came on our anniversary. Instead of going out to a fancy restaurant, we decided to have a simple dinner at home, cooking together and reminiscing about the early days of our relationship. As we shared memories, I felt the warmth of connection slowly returning. In the candlelight, Emily reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "I know I've hurt you and I want to do better. I promise to keep working on myself and our marriage," she said, her voice earnest. "I appreciate that," I replied, feeling the sincerity of her words. "But I need you to understand that rebuilding trust takes time. It's a journey we're on. Together, I'm committed to that journey," she said confidently, squeezing my hand. "I don't want to lose you again." By the time we reached the end of the year, I could feel our relationship transforming. Emily was making a conscious effort to connect more deeply with me, and I was learning to trust her again, albeit cautiously. We had built a new foundation, one that recognized our imperfections and celebrated our growth. As I reflected on the past year, I realized how far we had come since that fateful day when I discovered the underlined name in her planner. The pain still lingered, but it no longer defined us. Instead, it had become a catalyst for change, prompting us both to confront our demons and emerge stronger. This experience taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of communication in a relationship. I learned that even the strongest bonds can be tested, but with commitment and effort they can be repaired. For anyone experiencing similar struggles, my advice is simple. Prioritize honesty, be willing to confront the truth, and don't shy away from seeking help. It's okay to feel hurt and betrayed, but healing is a journey worth taking. As long as both partners are willing to put in the effort, love can transcend even the deepest wounds. As I lay in bed that night, I turned to Emily, who was asleep beside me. I smiled, knowing that while our road ahead would still have bumps, we were no longer navigating it as strangers. We were partners, committed to each other and to rebuilding our love together.